Welcome back to Glamour Unfiltered, hosted by me, Josh Smith. And today we are joined by the Emmy Award-winning queen herself. It's Jodie Comer!
You always give the best intros.
I mean, you've got the CV for the intro. Do you know what I mean? She's got receipts.
Thank you.
We are here today to talk about Talking Heads, which is this amazing new series that's coming to BBC. I've seen it, and let's get real, it's like a 45-minute tour de force in acting from you.
And it was so hard. Like, I remember finishing the day and being like, that is without a doubt the most difficult thing I've ever done. So it's something I definitely feel proud of.
I also love the fact that that's the most difficult thing you've done, and then most people on screen would be like, so murdering X number of people wasn't the most difficult thing, or like, how...
You know what it was? It was the concentration, and I think there was like 20 pages of dialogue. And obviously we shot it within the lockdown, new rules and regulations, less people on set. There was like one other person on set with me at any given time. So the set was deadly, deadly silent.
But one of the things I loved about this is this character, Leslie, who you play. She's kind of this actress who has got wild ambition. She wants to be the top of her game, possibly finding it very tough to get to that position. And I was just wondering, like, throughout your career, has there been a time when you felt like something was going to be your big break and you were like, this is it, honeys, and then it didn't happen? And then how did you deal with that?
I feel like they all make up to that big break. I mean, obviously Killing Eve was huge, and I think I'm more of a pessimist. I'm always a bit like, oh, no one's, oh God, you worry more, I think, than going, wow, this is it, guys, I've made it. It's always more like, oh my God, like everyone's gonna hate it, that I'm never gonna work again. Like, I mean, of course, like you do things and you put so much into them and not everything lands well, it's not like everything you do is a roaring success, and that's okay. And I think as long as you go into something with integrity and you know the reasons you're doing it and why you believe in it, it doesn't matter if it's a bit of a flop, because you have stood by your convictions and you believe in it, and then it never really matters. Whereas I think if you get into something for the wrong reasons and then it doesn't go well, then you've got to answer to yourself.
Because I think that idea of having to be authentic is such a discussion right now. Being an authentic person, being an authentic actress, doing the right things, making the right decisions for you. But I guess as well, like, you also have this self-critic that's like sat here all the time. How do you... What is your relationship with your self-critic like?
I'm better with dealing with that kind of critique of myself, like, because I feel confident in what I do, and I believe in what I do, and I kind of trust my strengths. Whereas if it's something more personable, like your self-esteem, or, what people think of you, or reading things online that aren't true, or those kinds of things, it's harder for me to kind of put my big girl pants on and be like, no. Also depends on the time of the month, Josh, to be quite honest with you. Yeah.
We're always going to criticize ourselves in different ways, right? Like, there's always going to be a time you can be like, oh my God, I'm not being that positive Penny today, or I'm not giving enough today, or I'm not giving. And I think it's almost like we always have to stop apologizing for ourselves, right?
I think people are more accepting of that now, as we're all kind of going through the same thing but are separated.
Where has been a time when you've literally in your career possibly not had that self-belief, and you've picked yourself up and you've been like, Jodie, get this together?
For me now is a little bit different, but like, you might go to 30 auditions, 40 auditions before you get a yes. So actually, you're constantly having to pick yourself back up. You go to an audition on the Monday, you don't hear anything. You go to a different audition on the Thursday, the following Monday, oh, you didn't get that, and you didn't get this one. Okay. Like, learning not to take it personally, and then going to your next meeting and not carrying that with you. And I think whenever I not got a role and watched the thing that I auditioned for, I'm like, see why I didn't get it, you know? But then it's so easy to go, oh God, was it the way I looked? Was it my acting? Was it too much? Was it, you know, it's so I think the key is to try and not take it personally.
Yeah.
You're not always going to be someone's cup of tea either.
I mean, sometimes they like a milky tea, sometimes they like it with one sugar.
That's what I mean. I don't want to be someone's milky tea. Thank you. Make peace with it. Move on.
But like, I think as well, with that, and Leslie, the character in Talking Heads as well, she puts so much pressure on herself. To like, so much like over the way she looks, over the way she does a scene, over the way she's going to achieve things. Like, how much pressure and what kinds of pressure did you put on yourself at the beginning that you don't necessarily put on yourself now?
Oh God, I think the notion of like, you know, wanting everyone to think I'm great or good at what I do, or the expectation to say the right thing, I think is what I'm getting much, much better at. Because obviously when you come into it, you're like, you're an open book and you're so eager to please. And then the more you go on, you're like, oh, it's not the way the world works. And I'm definitely by no means there. And I don't think you ever will be. But I'm definitely more better at going, okay, it's someone's opinion and that's not going to affect my choices or what I do next or, you know, that kind of thing. So I guess just trying to keep a strong head about you.
Do you think there's more respect in that sense for your voice as well?
You always have to prove people wrong, or, you know, people are like, that was really good, or wow. And you're like, yeah. You just have to kind of.
Yeah.
I did a theatre play when I was like 16, but I got the part yet, and I was going for the audition, and the character was middle class, RP, very well spoken, very wealthy family, and I got there and must have been the only Scouser and definitely girl from the northwest of England. It wasn't until I got the part that the director had told me that before I went in, she was like, why have we brought her in for the audition? Because she's seen where I was from, and she didn't think that I was capable, and I got it.
Yes, she did.
And when she told me, I was like, wow. And that's another thing I think is really interesting, because you just never know what's going on the other side of that door. Because I was from Liverpool, she didn't think I could do an RP accent.
But that's kind of just so annoying, because that's also like, we're talking like, that's so classist as well, isn't it? It's like,
oh, completely. So many meetings are like, can you lose that? Yes, I can. That's why I'm here. But maybe it's just because it's so strong. But I think it definitely is a classist thing, and I think it's something that is ingrained in you without you even knowing. Like Stephen Graham, like I always talk. Me and Stephen have talked about it before. It's like this imposter syndrome of like, because of where you're from, you feel so lucky to be where you're at, and it's like, well, actually, no, you have as much, right to be there as anybody else with any other kind of background.
And I think also with this 45 minutes of this show, where it's all about, she touches a lot on like the audition process and what she's been through and the trials and tribulations of that. For you personally, can you remember a time when you've done an audition, you've been like, this is the absolute pits, this is the worst of the worst moments for me, or a time when it's messed up and you've been so desperate for it to happen?
I remember when I was with my old agency, I got a train to London to do an audition for I can't remember what it was, but it was some sort of theatre production that had dance in it, and my train got delayed, and I was like probably 45 minutes late to this audition. And when I got there, it was like a dance workshop, And there was already like 30 girls in the room learning the choreography, you know, like very kind of Fame chorus line-esque. I was like, walked in with my bag, like sweat dripping off me, and they were like, just go to the back and kind of follow the routine. And then of course they like bring you to the front in groups of 4 to then show. It was just terrible. The worst thing is I was with my old agency, so I must have been about 15, 16 at the time. Of course, it's wonderful to be in a position where, like, if people have material, they're like, would you like to do this? Or we're thinking of you. Like, that's them, you know, that's always where you aim to be. But I think there is something about going into an audition room, knowing all of your business, and then having the confidence of going, I understand this character. This is how I feel. This is what I've made.
Where you're just like,
yeah. Well, you also know that you've understood it and you're on the right track. Whereas, of course, if you get offered something, it's like the first time you're going to actually do a scene is probably on day 1 if you don't have rehearsals, and then you're like, what if they're like, oh my god, we've cast the wrong girl. But of course, it's all insecurity, like you say. It's like that little voice in your head that is constantly thinking that something's going to be kind of swept from under your feet, or, you know.
Do you still feel like that?
Yeah. I don't think that goes away, and I kind of hope it doesn't. Like, I would never want to get to a point where I feel settled, because actually I think one of my driving forces is being scared to do something, because I think then you know that you're challenging yourself, and then you're only going to grow from that.
Because I guess that shows that there's so much power in this idea of leaning into your insecurity, right? Have you learned that?
For me, that is acting. Like, you put so much of yourself out there, all of your vulnerabilities, and actually I think that can be quite cathartic. You know, like some days, you know, you might have a big kind of emotional day on set, and yeah, some days you might go home absolutely exhausted, but then it's kind of like a weird release.
It's kind of like free therapy, isn't it? Like, when you just be like, I'm just going to let out all this weird emotion that's going on in my head right now, and I'm just going to yuck it into this character. She can deal with it, and I can leave her alone. And
I'm going to go away. Yeah. It's like you might do a crying scene, and then probably a cold cut, and then like for a minute after you're like, like, are you okay? And you're like, yeah, but I think like emotions just fascinate me, like, and of course that's what you deal with when you're acting. So
I think it's a good message to say to people that there is actually power to be found in your vulnerability.
Oh my god, absolutely, completely. I mean, because we all are vulnerable in our own little ways, and I think that when you feel in a comfortable enough space to open up, and someone else does, like, that connection is so lovely. Like, I feel like it only draws you closer to people. And I guess this, like, social media, like, everything's great, you know, no problems here. We lose that ability to kind of connect with each other.
Do you feel like you've tried to like safeguard your identity and yourself, that you don't get overwhelmed by this crazy situation you've been placed in? Like,
my family and my friends would put me in my place. Yeah. Like off the bat. And I've made peace with this. Like, this is the career I chose. This is the job that I love to do. Like, but there is so little about this kind of career, this life, that you have control of.
One of the stories when we spoke last time that you told me, which I just loved so much, is when we were talking about when you had your like hangover shifts in Tesco's, and you were like loving life on those checkouts / not loving life on those checkouts. And I wondered if you were a customer, shimmying up.
You're gonna ask me now.
Shimmying up to that girl at the checkout, and you could give her one piece of advice. What would you want to give that girl at the checkout?
I've always had such a strong idea of what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I've, you know, especially as you know, things get much bigger, it's so easy to kind of get swamped up in it all and kind of get a little bit off track. But I think it's just, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And, you know, I also had, like, when I was that young and, you know, doing jobs here and there, like, I'd have people say to me, like, well, like, you think you're going to be in films? Like, what are you going to do if that doesn't work out? And I'm like, not going to, like, can't even think about it. Like, that's not going to happen, you know? So when I think back to that response, I'm like, good for you.
Pat that girl on the back.
Yeah. But maybe not the girl on the checkout. I would be like, maybe don't go out 3 nights on the weekend, a little bit more sleep. Would probably be the advice, actually.
Well, I think if the girl on the checkout knew you were going to end up in the last duel with Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck, they'd be like, whoa, she fancy.
Yeah, they'd be like, this girl?
Well, babe, it's been amazing speaking to you, as always.
Me too. It's like the best.